do try and carry myself in a way that my family can be proud of me, and then my community can be proud of me and say, you know, that guy did it right. He did some things that made a difference. He used his time wisely, and he made an impact. My name's Harvey Mason Jr. I'm the CEO of the Recording Academy. I'm also the founder and CEO of Harvey Mason Media. Well, I really grew up around music. Both my folks were musicians. They met in music school, so it was part of kind of my DNA, is what I grew up around. There was always instruments in my house. There's pianos and drum machines. Like some of the earliest drum machines were created, my dad had his hands on, so I was always playing with kind of the new technology, keyboards, MIDI instruments. When computers started, my dad was an early adopter in that space. So I've just always been around music, and I've also had a really cool experience in the sense that I grew up around musicians. I knew I always wanted to do music. I was playing music, I was writing songs, I was singing, but I had something about me that gravitated towards sports. I was a quarterback of the football team. I played third base and pitched baseball. It was pretty decent, but basketball was just horrible. I did put in a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of practice, and ultimately became good in high school, led the state of California in scoring, and ended up going to the University of Arizona, where I played for 4 years. So my senior year in college, I tore my ACL. I pretty much at that point, back in the olden days, a career-ending injury, or at least one that took a couple years to come back from. It really put me in a different mindset. I'd worked my whole life since the 8th grade to accomplish the goal of playing professional basketball. So having that taken away from me, I was really disappointed. I was upset. I didn't know what to do with my life. I was in pain, both from the surgery and the rehab, but also emotionally and psychologically. I just wasn't in a great spot. And as therapy almost, just as an opportunity to take my head away or out of the perspective of, oh, I'm not gonna get to play basketball anymore, I started writing music again. I started playing keyboards, and I had a little setup in my dorm room and started creating songs. And when people were like, Harvey, you wrote jingles? I went from playing basketball to being depressed and like writing in my dorm room songs to then trying to figure out how was I gonna make a living? I gotta pay rent. You know, I gotta live. My parents aren't gonna pay for me. My scholarship was over. So I did jingle, and I saved money. And the money that I saved, I would use to drive to LA. I would drive out to LA, usually with one friend or just sometimes by myself, and I would just try and meet people. And I would follow people literally home from their jobs at record companies. You know, this is the time when you couldn't just go on the internet and Google who's the president or the CEO of a label. I would go to the label, I'd sit outside, I'd wait for the big cars to come out, and I'd follow them home, and I'd say, I think I know who that person is. And then I'd start leaving music in their mailbox. And then sometimes if they drove a convertible, I'd pull up next to them with red lights and I'd put stuff in their back seat. And I'd sneak into concerts, I'd be backstage. So I was doing everything I could, hustling. And one thing happened that's really important that I want to talk about, and that was I met a guy. His name was actually Guy. He listened to my songs and he worked at a label. He said, you know, your songs are good, but you gotta listen to this other song. He played me a record. It was an artist named Joe. I don't know if you remember Joe, J-O-E. He played me Joe's record and I was like, oh, that's amazing. Then he put my cassette in. That's how sad it was. These were cassettes. Put my cassette in, listened to it. I said, yeah, that's good. And then he put Joe's in and mine, and we went back and forth. And he said, do you hear the difference? I said, yeah, I hear a difference. I mean, Joe's amazing. He's awesome. He's one of my favorites. He's a professional. He's getting paid. I'm just a kid coming up. He said, total wrong thinking. Until your music sounds competitive with his, at least as good, if not better, don't come back to my office and stop sneaking into my parking garage. So that really hit me. And I went back to Tucson. I sat in my little studio that was in a closet of my friend's place. I just banged out records and kept getting better, kept practicing, kept being persistent, kept learning, kept listening, studying, doing all the things maybe you wouldn't do as a music producer or as a songwriter, but you definitely would do as an athlete. And so finally, after 6 months, I went back to LA. And I played Guy, my new music. And he said, I don't know what you did, but you've done it. You are now at the level where you can be hired to make music. And he gave me a job. So I've been really lucky in life and in my music career. I've gotten the chance to work with kind of all the coolest artists. I worked with my idols, worked with people I grew up listening to, Whitney and Michael Jackson and Elton John. And then I also have been kind of the younger, up-and-coming superstars that turned into the next generation of legends. Chris Brown, Justin Bieber, Justin Timberlake, Ariana Grande's, the Beyoncé's, those kind of group of artists. And again, I feel very fortunate, very thankful to have been able to work with artists like that. And if I attribute it to anything, I would probably say it was my goal when I work with any artist all the way from the very beginning. How do I make these artists look and sound their best? And those artists ultimately trusted me. And that's the difference. You can get a chance to work with the artist once, but if they don't believe you and they don't trust you and they don't see that you have their best interest at heart, you're not thinking about you as a producer or you as a songwriter. If you're trying to showcase them in the best light and trying to highlight them, they'll begin to trust you. And that's when you start getting the good collaboration. Preparing for Dreamgirls was unlike anything I'd ever done up to that point. I was mostly doing albums, songs and records, and those take maybe a week. You write the song, you get the artist, you cut it, you mix it, you're done, and you move on to the next song. Dreamgirls was a year-long process, and there's, I think, 60 pieces of music in that film. So the way we approached it was, again, the same way I try and approach everything in my life since sports, is set a goal, work hard to accomplish it. We just broke that film up into tiny pieces. We didn't try and do all 60 songs at once. We said, okay, we're gonna get this song done, and we're gonna move to the next song, and then the next song. That's how we managed our way through the process. But that film, Dreamgirls, was really the beginning of the vision that I had to establish Harvey Mason Media, because we'd always done records. The Underdogs had produced hundreds and hundreds of records over probably a 15-year period. But film was something I was really excited about and really interested in, and new exploration, a new outlet for music for me. And I could do different genres, I could do different styles, and do things on a big scale, like 60 songs in one project. We'd never done that before. So Harvey Mason Media began shortly thereafter, and we began focusing on film and television. I became a member of the Recording Academy almost 19 years ago now. My father was nominated for awards when I was younger, so I was aware of the organization. The opportunity to become a member was brought to me by the LA chapter membership director. But once I became a member, I understood what the Academy did, and it didn't take long. I went to a couple meetings. I became a governor for the Los Angeles chapter, which was my home chapter. The mission got me. The mission, it grabbed me by the shoulder and said, we want you to be more involved. So I ran for a national board, and I was elected onto the national board, which is roughly 40-something people that represent all the members across the country. And then from there, I was elected chair of the board. And I'm trying to remember where I was when I was notified that I was going to be the president and CEO of the Academy. I can tell you that it was probably after a time when I wasn't expecting it. Our CEO had stepped down. They asked me to serve the role on a very interim basis. And then ultimately, the board of trustees and the search committee asked me if I would do it. And touching a little bit on being the first Black CEO of the Academy, I take that with a lot of responsibility. I feel that a lot of times we don't have as many people to aspire to be like as we should. And so when I get into a position like this, I feel a responsibility. I feel the position demands excellence, and it demands that I produce results, and it demands that I represent properly. It's a little bit of a lofty aspiration for me to admit, but I'll say I do try and carry myself in a way that my teammates can be proud of me, my wife and children can be proud of me, and then my community can be proud of me and say, that guy did it right. He did some things that made a difference. He used his time wisely, and he made an impact. I'd say to me, there's a few key things that if you want to have somebody call some of your people, and if you want to even have people to call, you have to do. You have to make yourself invaluable. You have to do whatever it takes, whatever your role is, whatever job you want to have, whatever you want to accomplish. There are steps you have to take to make yourself invaluable. You're not always going to start at the top. You're going to work your way up, and the people above you are going to have to want to say, hey, that woman or that man is somebody that I believe in, that they can get something done, and they can do it better than somebody else. And a lot of people overlook that. They're trying to find out, how can I get rich? How can I get famous? How can I accomplish something? And they don't get great at anything. To me, we've lost a little bit of touch on excellence and working and being persistent and sacrificing and being able to be resilient and overcome challenges and adversity and not quitting. The people that I like to work with and the people that I'm most proud of and the people that I look up to are the people that have done it the right way. They've been honest, they've been humble, they've been fair, and they brought other people in.